Talk Radio 702.
Ad feature with Andy Rice.
The ad feature is brought to you by Hirsch's Home Store. Biggest range, best brands. I wasn't going to torment you.
I'm poised.
I know you are. Best brands guaranteed. Visit Hirsch's.co.za. Hirsch's.
Go for it.
I'm sure they will. Now, Andy, why can't we rely on rational, loyal consumers anymore?
Well, that's what I'd like to know, and I don't think this is necessarily a statement that it would surprise that many marketers, because this comes from a conference that was held here in Johannesburg recently hosted by Continental Outdoor Media. They're one of the companies that manage many of the billboards and poster sites around the country. Very, very big and leading company. And they had a guest who came out from the UK, described as an advertising guru, who made this point about the fact that customers are no longer loyal, regular, and making rational decisions, that they are increasingly disloyal, irregular, and emotional. And I have to say, I agree with that. My only comment would be that I'm not sure that's a new development. I think that the days of having a rational reason to buy a product or choose a particular brand is fast disappearing and has almost gone in many instances. That takes us right back to the sort of Procter & Gamble USP, unique selling proposition days, when one washing powder was significantly better than anything else on the market, and they spoke about its functional capabilities. And the same with so many other things, like even cars. There's no such thing these days as a bad car. Mm-hmm. You go back 30, 40 years, you had serious reliability issues, and performance was massively different, and there were absolutely clear intrinsic differences between the products, and so you could choose on a rational basis, but it's very hard to do that now. How do I convince you that a BMW is better than an Audi, or that a Mercedes is better than a Lexus? I can't, but I can persuade you it's very different, and I can persuade you that it will have one of those brands will appeal to you on a emotional level more than any other. And what is interesting, I find, is that people don't often buy this argument. They say, yeah, well, you can afford to be emotional if you're buying a bar of chocolate or any other low-price item. But if you're going to spend a lot of money on something, then the rational side clicks in. Well, that's simply not true. Mm-hmm. If you buy a car, you'll find that if you look at the car market, in almost every country in the world where there's a significant motor car market, the people who are most avid consumers of motor car advertisements are people who've just bought one, which should, in some sense, disqualify them from having an interest, because then they're not going to want to think about cars for quite some time. But they do that because they bought the car for an emotional reason, and they're reading the ads to try and find the rational justification for doing it.
Yes, I mean, I was just reading a car. It wasn't a car ad. It was an article on a car about the Range Rover Evoque. And it was all emotional. It was just, this is the sexiest thing you've ever seen. It's near as perfection as heaven is, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you read that, it would be emotion, mostly, that would drive you to that car.
Without doubt. And coincidentally, I was driving one last Friday around the Land Rover Experience grounds in Kyalami.
And is it close to heaven?
Well, it certainly is a really good performer. You could sell it on its capabilities. It's four-wheel drive. It did as well on the difficult tests as any of the other more, if you like, rugged ones. But clearly it sells on style, and it sells on not what it does for you, but what it says about you. And that is the difference. What it does for you is a description of its performance and its ability to do certain things. What it says about you is what other people think seeing you behind the wheel. And that's very much an emotional purchase. And I would pretty well guarantee that the vast majority of Evoque drivers and many other cars on the market, if they were honest with themselves, would admit that there was a very strong emotional bias in their motivation for buying that brand.
Well, there we go. And just ending off the topic entirely, lots and lots and lots of outdoor advertising. If we're talking about the giant billboards, they're all empty at the moment. I think it's a sign of a downturn in the economy.
Yes, companies are either leaving a campaign up longer than it's being paid for, so it's there, or they're taking it down, leaving a blank billboard, which is the worst option of all, I think. Or many of the outdoor companies are actually putting up advertisements for themselves.
Yes.
Like the Prime Media outdoor one that says this is not subliminal advertising. Yeah. And Continental, there's plenty of sites around that have their running cheetah as their logo.